point when it says live. You're live.
Hi, welcome back to Terri Reid's Attic, but not for ghost stories. Unless something walks behind me, and then please let Andrew know that there's a shadow behind me. But we should be good. It's in the middle of the day. We should be fine. Today, we're going to talk about writing. So there should be a little link under the YouTube thing, and it's got a link to my website. And there, underneath like a little paragraph, there's another link. And that link will lead you to a PDF. And that PDF would be helpful because it's kind of going to go through the same things that I'm going to be going through just to talk about the idea of writing in itself. So, and if you don't want to go there right now, that's great. But it'll help you later. Then maybe refresh things for you. So, Joseph Campbell was an American mythologist. I bet you didn't even know that there were American mythologists, but yes, and he was one. And neat guy, and he's got a great book, and I forgot to bring it upstairs, but it's called The Hero's Journey. And basically his hypothesis is that all hero myths have the same journey. And he went way back, I'm sorry, I just hit the microphone with my hand. He went way back to early Greek mythology and then studied the myths and the stories that have been told. And he came up with some ideas that all good stories have. And so if you have the PDF, there's one that kind of looks like this, and it's called The Hero's Journey. And you're not going to be able to see it from this, but this is it. So, and then in screenplay writing, that's kind of the next slide. It's a little bit different, but I kind of want to, and I put this together at first for a high school class, so you'll understand as I go through a couple examples why I use these examples, but you'll find them probably all throughout all of the books. Especially action and adventure that you see. So first, you start at the status quo. Now, if you flip like to screen 8 on the PDF, I give you the examples of Bilbo and The Hobbit, or I give you the example of Captain America. So I'm not sure if, I wanted to make sure I was hitting everybody in that high school room. So Bilbo, when we first meet Bilbo, right, he's just at home. He's I believe he's sitting outside smoking his pipe when Gandalf comes, at least in the movie, when Gandalf comes up to him, right? And he doesn't want adventure. He doesn't, he's fine. He's content. Now, Captain America, on the other hand, is not content with his life, but it sure doesn't look like he's going anywhere. He's that, 95-pound weakling that the bully throws, kicks sand in his face at the beach. And so that's his status quo. Nothing's changing in his life. So if you move on to this hero's journey, there's a call to adventure. Bilbo's call was when Gandalf arrives with a request. And Captain America is when he finally gets interviewed by the doctor. That's their call to adventure. That moves them from their status quo. Something happens that changes their lives. Okay, so then we move on. The next part is the refusal of the call. Bilbo decides, he doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to sign the contract. He doesn't want to go on adventure. He's fine. Captain America kind of has doubts too. But then they both accept the call after the initial refusal. Then in both cases, there's a mentor. And you probably can, I think of Obi-Wan Kenobi for Luke Skywalker. I mean, there's always been Gandalf for Bilbo and Dr. Erskine, the doctor who believed in him. He's that mentor. And so there's always like either a supernatural mentor or just a regular mentor who helps them along. Then they cross the threshold and they begin their journey, their transformation. Bilbo's crossing the threshold is actually joining the quest, And when Steve gets shot with the serum, although it could have been when he jumps on the grenade, but that was him anyway. I think so I think the serum, the actual transformation was the transformation. Then you get your test, tested with your allies, your enemies. With Bilbo, it's from orcs to giant spiders. He's tested. Loyalty is tested. Courage is tested. And then Captain America, the Red Skull is his enemy, and then he has his allies, Peggy and Bucky. But also his test is, he kind of gets thrown into, let's make you a movie star rather than a war hero. What do you really want? What are your choices? What are you going to choose? As you go through those, then there's the approach. So with Bilbo and the dwarves, it's getting to the Lonely Mountain. With Captain America, it's saving the 400 men from Red Skull. Then there's the ordeal. With Bilbo, it's going face to face with Smaug. With Captain America, it's losing Bucky and defeating the Red Skull. Then there's the reward. So Bilbo ends up with 2 small chests of treasure, and Captain America beats the Red Skull and saves the world from danger. But then there's the road back. And the road back is Bilbo going back to the Shire, but not really going back because he's not the same person. And Captain America flying that plane and then having to crash it. So I'm kind of going through this quickly so we can spend time on other things. But basically the idea, and then there's the resurrection. Bilbo comes back to the Shire, but he's changed. So the Shire's changed. And Captain America then later on gets rescued and comes back to a world that he doesn't know. So why are these things important? And why am I whipping through these like as quickly as I can? Because even though your own story might not contain all of the elements of a hero's journey, you should be aware of them. Because a story that has a character that doesn't change, that doesn't hit some of those points, is not going to be a good story. There's got to be a change. There's got to be an ordeal. There's got to be a time when your character questions themselves and thinks that they're going to fail. Because if you have a character that just is able to win at everything, conquer everything, that's a boring character. You want a character who has humanity. So that was a really quick overview of the hero's journey. I would really encourage you to. There's a great TED Talk about a hero's journey. There's also the book by Robert Campbell, Hero's Journey, and I would highly recommend that too. But the idea behind it is your story needs to tell that tale. Your character needs to change. Your character needs to have problems and issues and not know that they can make it. We all need to sit at the edge of our seats, wondering if that person's going to die, or are they going to make it? Or are they going to change? Are they going to walk away from love? Or are they going to all of those things? But there has to be that transformation in your main character's life. So let me quickly open it up. Questions about that? I know that was a really rough overview of it, but questions about that? Andrew's manning that for me.
Also, Disney Story Origins podcast.
Paul
also said that, just letting everyone know, that Campbell's book is called The Hero with a Thousand Faces.
Oh, that's right. Thank you very much. It is. Yes. Thank you. See, it's nice to have smart people online with you.
He also said the book, The Writer's Journey, The Mythic Structure for Writers by Christopher Vogler, is another excellent book about this.
Thank you. I'll have to get that. Thank you very much. So that same idea, and I think Disney does a really good job too with that hero's journey. The idea that these certain things have to be hit. Now, one of the questions I ask is, so what does this have to do with you? Well, you guys, all of you who are listening, have gone through your own hero's journey. You have left your own comfort zone, had some experiences that have changed you, then you've recovered, and then you move on. All of us have had that growth, whether it's trying out for the talent show, whether it's catching or dropping the final pass of the football game, whether it's being the editor of the newspaper and the nerd that doesn't get asked to things. I mean, there is still a hero's journey in all of those things. There is still that step. And why is that important? You know how they say, oh, you should write what you know? Well, obviously, I don't know what it means to be a detective. You know, I don't know what it means to be a police officer. I don't know those things. But what I do know are the emotions. I know the feelings of loyalty I have for my family. I know how it feels to lose a friend. Those emotions, those are the things I know. And so I can make my character whoever I want, but in order for my character to ring true, I need to go inside of me. Now, there was a quote. Oh, Campbell says, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasures you seek." Those scary places about ourselves, those scariest things that happen to us that we don't like to look at, those things, when you pull those out of yourselves and you put them on a paper, those are the things that make the best stories, because they're you and people can relate, because you are really telling a story. You're not just typing words. You are putting yourself out there. And that's to me why this hero's journey, you need to look back on your own life and look at your own hero's journey and see who have been your mentors. Was it a teacher? Was it your mom? Was it a cousin? Was it an employer? You know, how have they changed your life? What transformation? And when you came to that point where you had choices, what choices did you make? How has that changed your world? So that introspection will help you share your ideas with other people.
So we did get a few questions.
Okay, good.
Terry Bowles asked some really good questions.
Okay.
So could the hero or main character have several mountains to climb, so to speak? One bigger obstacle, one lesser, or is that confusing? Like a side story. The journey to solve one situation creates another situation and result, things like that.
See, and I think that's a great, yes, they can, as long as it's a, forward momentum. If you look, for example, for, The Hobbit, how many trials did Bilbo have over and over and over again? So first the trial was on the dwarf showing up, but then, they had the trolls, then they were captured, then they were on the mountains, then, constant. But what happened is, if you'll look at each of those trials that he had decisions he needed to make. He could have left them at any time. He could have not been the burglar, especially with kind of the feedback he got. But he transformed a little bit each time he hit one of those things, and he made those decisions. And characters can transform for good or evil. Sometimes they can make a decision that wasn't so great, and then maybe they digress, and then they hit another decision where they have to be that person, that stronger person. How many stories have we seen where the person runs away and says, no, I can't do that. And then something happens that he doesn't have a choice anymore. He has to be that person, or people die, or whatever the or is. But yes, good question, and that was a really long answer to a really good question. So
Terry Snyder asked, or I guess she stated, I have all kinds of ideas, but have no idea where to start.
okay, so but let's talk about, so, and we can get back to this too with questions, but let's talk about that. I have this, what can help you become a successful writer? The first thing I want to say is most of the writers that I know and me, we have so many ideas. We have I know that I will never ever be able to write all of the stories for all of the ideas that I have. It's just not going to happen. I'm hoping that there is a computer in heaven so I can continue writing stories. I have so many ideas. It's a wonderful thing. It's a blessing. The downside of it is it's way tempting to start writing one of those stories and have the other story say, look at me, I'm an exciting story too. And then you turn and you stop writing that first story and you go and you start playing around with this. You got one on the side, got a story on the side. Don't have a story on the side. That's cheating. Just finish with the first story. Push it through, because that's the hardest thing for writers, is finishing. And once you finish, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, they changed their name.
Tabernacle Choir of Temple Square.
The Tabernacle Choir in Temple Square does go in the background. When you write the end, it's amazing. But the other thing is, forever, you can go back and say, well, I finished that one, I can finish this one. And believe me, you need to be able to say that to yourself. So, yes, great ideas. And I would say sometimes as you're writing, you'll get an idea. Whatever you use, you can use index cards, you can have a little file. All you do is you write down the idea, because believe me, I've probably forgotten more ideas than I've written. Write down kind of the basis that will remind you what this story was about, and then leave it alone. Don't go cheating. Go back to your original story and finish it.
Can I also comment on the where to start?
Yes.
And I'm coming at this in a screenwriter perspective as opposed to a novel writer, which is...
That's novel. Oh, sorry.
It's novel.
That's
it's
novel.
10 times easier than writing a novel, writing a screenplay. But the way that I start off, my mom is incredible because she can just sit down and start writing. But there are a lot of writers who have the 15-page syndrome. They sit down, they write 15 pages, and then they get writer's block. They have no idea where to go from there. And I think a good way to avoid that and to actually start writing is to outline your story first. Just sit down. It's a time-consuming process, but I need to outline my story. I need to know where it's going. I know. I'm a Disney Story Origins podcast. A plotter.
That's great.
I need to outline my stories, and I think that makes it a lot easier when it comes to the actual writing process.
So let me explain something, because Andrew just brought that up, which is great. So another great book for writers is Stephen King's book on writing. I love that book, and I've read it several times. The first part is kind of his autobiography, but the second part is all about writing. His autobiography was useful too. Whoa. Stephen, if you're listening, he didn't mean what he said. Anyway, he talks about two different kinds of writer. Stephen King is by the seat of his pants writer, which is who I am. I have an idea and I go. It's organic every day. And sometimes my characters say, "Oh, honey, we're not going to go that way." And then I have to change things. And it's a little frustrating, but I've learned to live with it. Now, Jim Butcher, who is, I think, also an incredible writer, he did the Dresden Files. He started the Dresden Files as a part of a class. He was taking a college writing course, and he started the Dresden Files as part of that. He outlined, I think there's more than 20 books there's a huge amount of books, but he did it like a computer spreadsheet. He knew what his character was going to do, how they were going to do it, when they were going to meet these people. He outlined the whole entire thing. Bless his heart. I couldn't do that. So you need to figure out the kind of writer you are. I remember reading a review. It was so sweet. I think it was like by book 10 of the Mary O'Reilly series. And somebody wrote, this person, Terri Reid, must have plotted this out because all of these things come together. I laughed so hard. I mean, bless her heart. That was, yeah, he did. That was one of the nicest things anybody could have ever said. Because, yeah, no, I wasn't organized. But I do find that people who are organic writers, things fall into place like that. It's just you're writing in chapter 12 and you realize, oh, that's why I needed that in chapter 6. So there must be a little part of our brain way back there that they know what we need to do, and we just need to kind of move for it, and it's going to happen. Figure out who you are. Don't let, because for some people, an outline will kill them. They just need to start writing. And for some people, they need that outline. So just figure out who you are. There is no one way to write. Okay, how's that? Okay, so
both sides.
That's what I try to do. So what can help you be so? Stick to one story. Stick to one story. Write every day. Writing is just like any other kind of exercise. You know, you need to do it and get better and better at it. And if you can't write anything in your story, write a journal entry. Just write every day. And if it helps you, write at a certain time, the same time, just so you're developing that habit. Stephen King said he gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning. He writes until noon. He has lunch and he reads all afternoon. I read that and said, that's because he's a dad. Moms can't do that. But that's a great thing. You know, if you can do that, do that. But find a time for yourself to write, because it's not going to get done. When I was working my other job full time, I was doing marketing and public relations. Every Tuesday, I would stay till 10:30 at night in my office, and that would be my writing time. Find a time where you can write. Rules are important. If there's any younger people listening to this, pay attention to your English teachers. Punctuation, grammar, spelling. I loved in high school learning how to diagram a sentence, because all of a sudden prepositional phrases made sense to me. Oh, that's how that works. And so when I put together a sentence, I'm hoping somebody isn't going to say, no, who is she talking about? I just saw something on Facebook yesterday. It's somebody said something like, my 3-year-old just asked me if Bingo was the name of the dog or the farmer. Sentence structure. There was a farmer, had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. Who is the dog? Who is the Bingo? Was it there was a farmer and Bingo was his name-o, or who had a dog and Bingo? How would we diagram the sentence? Make sure that as people are reading, they know exactly what you're talking about. You don't want people to be pulled out of your story. You don't want people to stop and say, wait, what did she mean? Psh, they've lost it. You want to pull people in and keep them in your book, and keep them in the mystery or in the romance or wherever it is. But those tools, punctuation, grammar, spelling, sentence structure, those are important to make sure they stay in your world. I always tell people this, but it's not true in my case. Don't let your mom edit your book. My kids don't like me editing for them because I'm so mean. But you don't want somebody to read your book and say, oh, honey, oh, that was wonderful. No, you want somebody to say, you know what, on that paragraph, when I was reading it, that didn't make sense to me. Or really? And some of you guys are my beta readers, and I love you. And you do that for me. You say, wait, that didn't make sense. Or is that really the right word? My first book, instead of, I'm going to say it wrong again. instead of the cavalry, right? The
Cavalry? Yeah.
cavalry, the horses. I said Calvary. I'm doing it wrong again. Like the hill where Jesus was crucified. I messed those up. I really wish at that time I'd had a really good editor who said, "Really? Is that what you wanted?" Because no, it wasn't. And I had somebody write review and let me know about that. Hate those.
Better to get it before you.
Yes, it is. So have people that you trust who aren't worried about hurting your feelings, who will tell you straight out. That's who you want to edit your book. You don't have to spend $500 to get it professionally edited. If you have friends who are very good at editing, who understand the English language. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of a what's the word? Exception to that. I remember going to a writer's group once. I wasn't invited back. And it was a group of lovely ladies who met once a month at this writers group. And so I came, and what they would do is they would bring like several pages and they would read it to the group. And so I asked the group, asked each individual person, what are you looking for? Because some people, we're all at different stages. Some people just need somebody to say, good for you, you just did 6 pages. And that's what they needed to keep on. Some people who are ready to send something to an editor need a little bit sharper critique. And so in this writers group, we had, people read, and this one woman read, and somebody in the group said, oh, well, if I had written that, I would have. She should have stopped right there because she didn't write it. Don't have anybody else write your story. It's your story. You get to write what you want to write. It's your story. So don't let a writer's group stop you from writing your story, especially people who don't understand that this is your story. Don't have somebody say, well, if I would have written that. We also had a person who would say, oh, that reminded me of a movie. And then we would learn all about the plot of this movie. You don't want that either, and what you want is for somebody to take the position of a reader and say, well, when you read that, I was confused here. Or when you read that, I didn't really see what you were trying to describe, that confused. Those are the things you want to hear in a writer's group. Or, oh, I could see that person. I love your character. But don't let them rewrite because that's the way they would have done it. Nobody writes like anybody else. Stephen King doesn't write like Charles Dickens or Louisa May Alcott or Jane Austen. They all have their own styles. They own their own way of doing it. And everyone is right. So you get to write the way you want. Don't let anybody change that. But just make sure that as they're reading, they comprehend the story that you're telling. I hope that makes sense. There's a lot of words. So stop for questions for a minute. Questions?
Yeah, go ahead and let me look at the conversation we've had up until this point. People are talking about their editors.
Ooh, bad editor story or good editor stories?
Most of them are good.
Okay, good. That is such a great tool. Having good editors. Oh, yes.
Kitty said, thank God King doesn't write like Dickens. Could you imagine It or Pet Sematary written by Dickens?
Scrooge written by King. Stabbed a holly in his heart.
Let's see. Yeah, just talking about editors, then talking about Kitty or Terry Snyder, and then Kitty did make a really good point. This is back earlier.
Okay.
Terry Snyder said, don't talk about the hero's story, the hero's peak, but don't write them in circles. It makes me dizzy. But then Kitty said, Teresa, part of the writing in circles is finding the aha moment for your character to break the circle.
Yes.
So, and then Disney Story Origins, Paul agreed. So that's what she said.
And you know what? You don't want, though, I think I understand what Terry's saying. Once a lesson is learned, you want it to be learned. You know, having somebody as a character, a main character who's whiny, who, oh, I wish this didn't, and you know what? A couple times, twice, and I'm thinking about the Lord of the Ring, when who am I thinking of? The main character.
Describe him. Frodo?
The main character, Frodo. Thank you. I couldn't think of Frodo's name. When Frodo says, "I wish this didn't happen to me," and then Gandalf is brilliant. None of us wish. I mean that. And then later on, Frodo is having another. Oh, I wish this didn't happen to me. And some of us are thinking, "Oh, honey, it happened to you. Deal with it." And then we hear Gandalf's wise words, and it was an appropriate time to do it. But sometimes if you have a whiner character that is I guess depending on how you write them, they can be a little annoying. So if that's the circle where they haven't learned the lesson, they haven't moved on, and they keep making that stupid mistake over and over and over again, move that character on, push that character, or kill him. But get that character out of that rut, because we get tired of it as readers. You know, that's I think the writing in circles.
Paul said Pinocchio, which I actually haven't seen the movie Pinocchio.
Really?
Not
the Disney. It's a scary movie. It's a scary animated movie.
Yeah, I think because I remember I did watch it when I was younger.
And it terrified you?
I don't know why I never went back to it.
Probably terrified.
Yeah, probably.
You need to go into your cave and look at your Pinocchio memories.
No.
Okay.
That's one of those things.
You're not. Okay. Yeah.
Terry said maybe the circle isn't the right word. It's where the story is all over the place.
Okay. Well, and that there should be, when you write a story, they talk about, is it moving the plot forward? You want to move your plot forward. Now, sometimes it's not bad to take a little bit of a, look around, see the flowers. That's an okay thing. But for the most part, when you're writing stuff, make sure it moves your plot forward. If you notice in the Mary O'Reilly books, there's not a whole lot of description about what color the carpet is, or any of those kinds of things, because I find that when I read books that go into great detail,
Stephen King. I got something in my throat.
Oh, I didn't notice that, but I skip those over. I don't read those. I just move, because it's like, that's nice, but that's okay. And I move forward because I want the action. So I tend to write the things that I would like to read. And so a little bit of that is great, but make sure you're moving your plot forward. If it doesn't help the plot, really, really think about, it's like spices. A little is good, too much. Really think about adding extras, as you said, that pull the plot line away from where it should be. A couple other points. What?
Just funny comments. That's all. I'm sorry. I'm
not. You need to share them with me then.
Yeah,
if they're funny.
Let me see. So going back.
Okay.
To the whiners. Kitty said whiners. They sound so Mary Sue.
I like that. Like Karen, right? Mary Sue and Karen.
Paul was talking. He was talking about the book, and then he said, "I wish I went to school. I wish I listened to my teachers over and over in Pinocchio the book." Let's see. We're talking about earlier. I was talking about editing. I'll just pick out some of the comments that kind of made me laugh a little bit. So one of them was talking about. It was Kitty talking about her mom editing, because I did say I do let my mom edit for me. I'm an exception. And Kitty said my mom editing would be horrible. It's not a historical, steamy, trashy romance. So, and then talking about descriptions, Kitty says 5 pages describing a room and then almost forgetting where you while
That's
you were
right.
there. Paul said, when description is long-winded, I look for quotation marks.
Yes. Yep.
Everyone, Terry Snyder saying it gets boring.
Yeah.
I get so bored reading a story that went a wild chapter about the turtle, a whole chapter about the turtle moving. There's a chapter about a turtle moving. I get they move slowly, but that's
Okay, so let's talk about something that reminded me. I love the way that this is working. Let's talk about exposition and let's talk about telling and showing. So exposition. And what we were watching a movie. What was it that we were watching where it was exposition? I said, "Oh, Andrew, that's exposition."
it was Van Helsing.
Oh, Van Helsing.
Yeah.
And
great movie though. Still a good movie.
I love it.
But there are problems with it.
Especially towards the end when Hugh Jackman takes his shirt off. Great movie. Sorry. Great movie.
I can't relate.
Anyway, but it's like, well, you remember when 100 years ago and you were fighting and I remember that. And then we were doing, I mean, it's like, okay, we need to explain something to everybody out there in order to move the plot forward. So we're going to tell you this in that kind of way. And it's exposition. It is, we're filling in all, instead of showing you, we're telling you about that.
And it wasn't, I think the worst part of it, because it was in the beginning of the movie, explaining what, like how they found him and everything. And it was an argument that was so incredibly contrived to explain that point.
Right.
If you're going to have exposition, make it feel natural and don't make it feel so forced that everyone's like, there's the exposition, found it.
Yeah, found it. So there's ways to do it, and then there's ways of what I find is most new writers are really good at telling but not showing. And to me, the easiest way to describe it is after you've read a paragraph, something you've just written, do you as a reader can you stand in that paragraph and smell the same air that person and look around the room? And I'm not talking about big, huge, a whole chapter on turtles. I'm talking about the leaves were falling, or as she walked across the room, she heard the crunch of the leaves under her feet. I mean, can you hear? Can you taste? Can you smell? Are you there in that room? Have you, through your words, have you pulled somebody into the story and enveloped them with what you want them to see? Can you see it, or are you just telling it? And the showing versus telling is huge. It really, when you show somebody, and now of course my mind is totally blank on good examples of showing.
Like fall.
Okay, so yeah, it was autumn. That would be telling. Golden leaves whisked through the air. The cool bite of the wind tickled her nose, and she could smell the fires from the wood stoves in the neighborhood. It's fall, but do you see the difference? One brought memories back to you. Christmas, walking in. They walked in. The house was decorated for Christmas. She walked into the door. She could immediately smell the pine from the huge Christmas tree. And she thought she could smell a little bit of vanilla. Somebody must be baking cookies in the kitchen. Music was playing softly. She could feel the warmth from the wood stove. So those things, let my senses be involved in your story. Don't just tell me it was Christmas. Describe it to me. And don't say, well, she was really sad, so she cried. And I know you guys wouldn't do that. This is, but tears welled in her eyes, and she felt her throat close. and one tear slipped down and trailed down her cheek. So there's a difference, and the more you can show me, the more I'm pulled into your story. If you just tell me, I feel like I'm on a bus stop watching the bus go by instead of stepping into the bus and being part of what's going on.
A good question was asked.
Oh, good.
Paul asked, so is there a balance, or is it just no tell only show?
I mean, sometimes I think you have to tell, but and that's a really good question. And I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to think about the books that I write. I'm a very visual person, and so when I'm writing, I almost feel like I'm writing a TV program. When I'm writing the Mary O'Reillys, and like I get to a spot where I don't know what I'm doing or what's coming next, I actually go lay down, close my eyes, and visualize what's going to happen next, because the visualization is so important to me. So I guess there would have to be some telling at some point, but just make sure that you're not pulling people out. I mean, she was driving her car down. Well, okay, so she was driving her car down the highway. Now you're telling, but then let's expand it again. What's the weather like? What are the other cars doing? What's on the radio? Is there a radio? What's the wind like? I mean, so yeah, you did tell, but then you're immersing them with enough other stuff that they're sitting in the car with that person. And I think that's the basic idea, is you want your reader so pulled in that if it's in the middle of the summer and your story is set in winter, you want them to shiver. That's where you want them. You want them to sob when you're sobbing writing the story yourself. You want them, and by pulling them in and showing them, because then they're immersed with it too. I think that's the goal. So find your balance.
Because Terry Snyder also said a very interesting comment. Good thing to write about, but I don't need to know how many bugs were under all those leaves.
Yes. And I think that's the difference between writing 14 pages of this is what our house looked like, and just writing that it was warm and inviting, and you could smell the lemon polish. You could smell the lemon polish on the wood, and the chintz curtains looked freshly pressed. That gives you an idea of who the person is, and probably gives you a whole idea of what the house is like. And you didn't have to do it in 18 paragraphs. Pick out those things that you notice when you walk in.
That's a very good point. Yeah, I think when you're show from the perspective of your protagonist.
Right. Exactly. And that's a really good point, because Paul's protagonist, I love her. She would notice different things than Mary O'Reilly would notice. So remember who your protagonist is. If your protagonist is a guy, don't say chintz curtains, because unless he's a decorator, he's not going to know. But he might remember that funny smelling lemon stuff that his mom used to use. I mean, so be real when you're writing about, remember who your protagonist is when you're describing things, and when you're showing and not telling. Okay, questions.
Good comments were being had. So people were criticizing some other authors, which is very fun. So it was Tolkien that got roasted the most by Paul, but also
Okay.
Grapes of Wrath under scrutiny as well. So Paul was talking about Tolkien. Tolkien is like that too. He's responding. So let me go back. So
Okay.
Terry Snyder started the conversation.
Okay.
So the chapter about the turtle moving is from the Grapes of Wrath. So she was talking about, she finally finished it, when she was in the hospital for a month and had nothing else to do. I would have actually preferred to watch paint dry. That's just me, though.
But see, that tells you about. I mean, he was a great writer. That tells you about. I mean, there's so many of those great books that we're supposed to read that we read and we think, oh, I can't even finish this, and life's too short. And so, as you're creating your own world, and you know that there's so many people, there's so many choices now. You know that in the days of Hemingway and there weren't as many writers competing. You go, there's millions of writers now that compete for readers. And so you want to be sure that what you write is something that pulls somebody in and doesn't make them feel like they'd rather watch paint dry. You know, I think that's a challenge to us as contemporary writers. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
We're at the Tolkien thing.
Yeah, Tolkien was just he's like that as well. Paragraphs and paragraphs about a leaf falling out of a tree. You can't throw. This is my favorite. You can't throw a rock in Middle Earth without hitting a poem.
Well, and he loved that. I mean, that's who he was, you know. And I agree. As I read Lord of the Rings a long time ago, and I'm sure I flipped through pages like, yeah, I don't need to read this part. Yeah, which is terrible because you can miss wonderful nuggets.
Well, and the way that I get around that is I just listen to an audiobook. That's just me.
Okay.
Let's see. Terry Snyder. It's like watching a TV program. A commercial came on. This is earlier about noticing things. A commercial came on, and when it got back to the show, you almost forgot what it was about.
See, that's not good. That shows you that they didn't pull you in because, although some of these places have like 20 minutes of commercial, so I can totally understand that too. So, sorry, that was an aside. Go ahead.
Paul said, "Did you just mention Zara? Awesome."
Yes, I love Zara. She is such a great character. Yeah.
Call out the book. What's the book?
Oh, don't do this. I'm old.
Sorry.
Paul, call out the book, and then I will call out the book.
Terry Bowles said, "I notice odd things that probably most wouldn't. I notice things like spots on bananas."
But see, you know what? Depending on what you're writing your book about, is that important to your protagonist? Is she going to look at the bananas and say, 2 more days and you're banana bread, honey? I mean, is she going to? And how many of us relate to that? See, and that's the thing. If you can say things like when Mary O'Reilly heard the first book, heard the thing in her basement, heard noises in her basement, and she walked to the basement door and she said, "No, I've seen the movies. I'm not going to do that." And she called Bradley and waited. How many of us said, finally? You know, those of us who have yelled at movie screens and TV screens for years and years, don't go down there. Haven't you seen the movies? She saw the movies. So do things where people can smile and relate and think, this person is like me. Okay, did Paul call out his book yet?
Mm-hmm. Oscar Mike.
That's right. Now that you say it. Oscar Mike by Paul Hale. It's got Mary O'Reilly mentioned in it. It's a great book. And I know when he first released it, I put it all over my pages, but I haven't lately. So Oscar Mike, great book. Okay.
I think you probably continue.
Okay. So in this thing, I also talk about, so we talked about editing and we kind of really got lost in there. Editing, book clubs or writers groups. I can't do a writers group. I know people who have really good writers group and they love them. But if your writers group is a coffee clutch where people talk about everything else but writing, go to it, but don't bring your writing to it because they're not equipped to help you. Get somebody get people who are serious about the craft of writing. The other thing is, when I first started writing Loose Ends, I had no idea what I was going to do. I was just staying late and writing my book. I didn't have a plan. I don't think I even ever pictured myself as a writer. I just pictured I had the story that I needed to tell. Now I would say make a plan, give yourself goals. So anybody who has an Amazon account can upload a book to Amazon. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. Because there's a lot of really bad stuff up on Amazon now. But you don't have to go through a traditional publisher anymore. Many of us don't do that. And the world is open to you. You upload it and people all over the world can buy your book. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to do this, and I think everybody, if you should, but treat it professionally. Get good editors, and if you don't have friends who have, backgrounds in English or are good editors or just good attention to detail, pay for an editor. My background was in marketing and public relations. I did ads and I did brochures and things like that. So I do a lot of my own covers. If you don't have a background in that, don't do your own cover. There's enough cover people that do it for fairly inexpensive price. Get somebody to do your cover. I see too many people who use word art on their covers, and it's like, oh, well, this one was done at home. You don't want anybody to say that about your book. So if you're going to get it done professionally. Make sure that look at books from your genre, successful books from your genre, and emulate those, because they know what they're doing. They've spent the money to have the marketing people, talk to people about what they like to see. Look and see and make sure that you're emulating those. Don't go cheap, because the old saying, you can't judge a book by its cover. Well, today people are judging your book by its cover. They see a thumbnail and they decide whether they're going to buy it or not. So make sure that the things that you put into your book are professionally done. Read. Stephen King spends the afternoon reading. I would love to be Stephen King. In that case, not some of the other cases, but in that case, I would love to be Stephen King. Just read. Reading is so great. And now I find myself, when I read, I think, oh, I love how they said that. And I'll reread that just to remember, what it is. Reading fills you with new vocabulary, new insights, it's just so wonderful. It just fills you up. So take the time to read. And then we kind of talked about write what you know. You've known pain. You've known loneliness. You've known sorrow. You've known happiness. You've known relief. You've known fear. Go back, touch those feelings. Remember those times. Remember what your body did. Remember what your stomach did. Remember all of those things and put those things down on paper. Remember everything that you felt. That's going to make your stories resonate with other people. Okay, questions.
People were listening. There aren't too many questions.
Oh, I love that.
Thus far. There was a question that was asked way earlier.
Okay.
But I think that I'm going to save that question for closer to the end.
Okay. Well, actually, I've kind of gone through my stuff. So this is kind of question.
Okay.
So ask it.
So let me get back to it. It was pretty far up, and I didn't want to address it yet.
Okay.
Until closer to the end. Let me find it so I can say it exactly the way that it was written.
Okay.
So many.
Nice.
Which is good. It's a good problem to have.
I'm doing the Jeopardy theme song for you.
Thank you.
Nope. He failed Jeopardy.
I did.
Sorry, Alex. You can't give him the $500.
Basically, the question was...
Okay. That's okay.
I keep trying to find it.
Okay.
So I'm going to paraphrase. I don't remember who said it.
Okay.
But they were asking if you would want to do like a master class, if you'd ever be interested in doing like a master class or something. Oh, Kitty, Terry, have you thought about doing a master class? Patterson's was about outlining. Maybe yours is about flood writing, or you just finished that thought for me. So, and then Terry Bowles said, Terry and I talked about that a while ago, but what are your thoughts about doing like a master class or just like a class or something?
Yeah, I love doing this. But I look at some of the people that they have doing master classes. Neil Gaiman is doing one, Patterson's doing. I mean, these are. I have to say, these are people whose resumes and books behind them are fairly intimidating, and so um, I guess I have no problem telling you what I know. I don't know if I know enough that it's a master class, which is why I love the question and answers, because it's kind of, please, ask me, because sometimes I'm not thinking about what you need. And so this is kind of a nice thing. I don't know yet. Andrew was yesterday. We were talking about things, and Andrew said, "Oh, you should write a book about becoming an indie author." And I said, "There are so many books out there about good books about being an indie author, and I've been interviewed for several of them." And so it's like, do I need? Can I even reinvent it? What can my voice offer that hasn't been said already? And
I will say, and this is the argument that we had,
yeah,
not the argument, the discussion
okay,
that we had is that her take is different because she's an independent author. And so not only does she write, but she does the rest of it as well. And so that would be an interesting other insight into things.
Okay.
But that is my thought. Paul said, I've seen all the writing masterclasses thus far. They all say the same things in different ways.
Okay. See, and that's, so if you can't add to the discussion, yeah, that's, I love doing this, and then it's out there on YouTube. I love doing this, and have done this for high school students. I get invited to local high schools, and I get to talk to them about writing, and do a question and answer with them. And I love this because that's our future. And now there's so many. I think I printed a list for these high school students. There was over 100 writers who are under the age, successful writers who are under the age of 18. The door has been opened, and through Amazon. I know some people complain about Amazon. Amazon opened up the world to me. I'm selling books in Europe and Australia and New Zealand and in the UK, all over the world, because and I'm sitting here in Lena, Illinois, because Amazon offered this to us. And yeah, they're making money too, but they're more generous than the traditional publishers. My sister was traditionally published, and I know how much she made, and it was nothing close to what I've been able to make because of Amazon and the way they do things. So, yeah, this is a great opportunity for all of us to do. And so, if we can share what we've learned and everybody gets to be a little bit better, I think that's a great thing.
Terry Bowles asked, "What about an in-person workshop, like we talked about? We'd be face-to-face focused."
And that would be a cool thing. Bob Mayer in Knoxville, Tennessee. He bought this really big house right on the river, and I know he's moved since, so I don't know if he still does this, but he bought this huge old house so that he could actually invite people in, and that he did writers' weekends, and so it's like a B&B plus a writers' weekend, and so I think he had like 15 people. And they came in, and he would talk to them about writing, and then they would write stuff, and they'd all review it, and it was that kind of a workshop kind of thing. And I think he charged people like $500 per person because he's Bob Mayer. I mean, he's indie now.
He can do what Bob Mayer wants.
He was special forces. I mean, he's
fair.
and he I mean, he's got great books out there, and he is a New York Times bestselling author. He was traditionally published before he's gone back to indie, but people would be willing to pay that kind of money to do that kind of thing. And I have to say, but by the time you put together, a writer takes the time to put together all of the material that's needed for something like this and take the time out of their writing, because when we're not writing, we're not writing. We're not, and so yeah, I've thought about it. I just don't know. I remember we kind of put something out there, and we really didn't get a lot of response of people that would be willing to travel, like to Louisville, to do it. And so you really have to work in that return on investment. By the time you travel and you put together all of this and you put together all of that, are you getting a return on investment? And so I guess it would be something I would consider. But yeah, it would have to be something where you felt like you could justify being away from your keyboard during that time. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Paul said, it talked about you'd have to specifically address, when it comes to master classes, you'd have to specifically address indie writing in that process, because all the writing stuff been done. There are no master indie authors doing a master class. So that would be something worth saying to a master class.
Yeah, but I look at David, I'm going to say his name wrong, Gagran. Do you guys know who? It's I believe, Gaughran. He now lives in Portugal. He's from Ireland. He's written like 3 books on being an indie author. He's got a great blog, and he talks about Amazon ads. He talks about marketing. He has spent so much time researching being an indie author. And if you haven't signed up for his blog, please do. I mean, it's great. But see, I learned from him. So I would kind of feel like a fraud doing an indie class. I think he could do a master class. And he's got this really cool beard. And he's got this great accent. So I could see him doing a master class on it. I don't know if I could see me doing it. It would just, yeah. Sorry. You got, what is, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to see. This is why I would never do something like that.
Post a link to the blog.
I will do.
What's the blog called?
It's David, and it's if you look up David, regular David, and then I think it's GAUGHRAN.
GHRAN, writer?
Yes.
David Gaughran, marketing with the story.
Yes, that's yeah. If that's his blog site, he's my friend on Facebook. So he's so he's a nice man. He's a brilliant guy. So you did it.
I did it.
Dun, 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 dun.
So I don't know if you click on it, it will let you go there, or if you have to copy and paste it.
Yeah, you might have to.
It might be worth the extra effort to copy and paste it.
He used to, on his website, offer you. He wrote one of the first books about indie authors, and he interviewed me. And I got to say, it's been 8 years ago or so when he interviewed me, and then he wrote a second book, and he interviewed me again. But he interviewed people from all over the indie area, and it was a lot of fun. He's a great guy, but he is just all of these years he's been doing research on this, and I've just been writing, but he's been really researching how to play with Amazon's algorithms and all of this fancy stuff. So he would be good at a masterclass, but his blog is kind of a masterclass. So I highly recommend it. There's also a Facebook page. I'm going to have to find it for you, but it was something like 50,000 words to $50,000 or so many books to $50,000. And it basically was an indie author Facebook page. It's a closed group, but you can ask to join, and it's basically people who write, like put out books every week. I mean, it's amazing. A lot of it is it called space opera, that kind of genre. But they talk about how to get your book out there, how to make all this money, and there's a lot of really good information there too. I will look it up and post it on my Terri Reid author page. The links, or you know what, or you can message me and I'll send it to you, because I'm not sure if I think it would post, a link would post.
Yeah, the links are interactive.
Okay, so I will post it on my Terri Reid author page, because I haven't gone there in a while, but it was very interesting. The things that people were doing to be successful. So, and a lot of successful authors that I know are part of that group, and so they give each other tips and stuff. So, and they invite newbies. You don't have to be, but it's really interesting to learn what other people are doing.
I just posted if there are any other questions
Okay.
about writing or the process of being an indie author.
Right.
So yeah, if you have any more, because we are about an hour and 6 minutes in.
Oh, go us. So, and once you get your story and you've edited it and you've done all of that, really the process to actually upload is so simple. Amazon has made it so user friendly, and so you can go out there and maybe in the future we can do something that's specifically about uploading but you can do it. You write your story, get it out there, believe in yourself, write every day, and when you get frustrated, push past it. Writer's block can happen. Go throw something, load of laundry in and get back to it. Don't let it beat you. Don't get distracted. Distraction is, I think it's the worst enemy of writers, because we really want to get distracted. With self-defeating behaviors, it's scary. It's scary to put yourself out there. My favorite 1-star review. So I love my 5-star reviews, and I'm so grateful to all of you who put reviews out, because that's how you live or die as an indie author, is reviews. And I'm really grateful. And it's funny because I have lots and lots of 5 stars. Do I remember the 5 stars? Some of them I do, but mostly it's the 1 stars, because that's who we are as writers. We're slightly insecure. We have a 5th grade girl who always tells us, you can't write another book. My favorite 1-star review was for Loose Ends, a Mary O'Reilly paranormal mystery. 1 star. This isn't a romance at all. This is more like a paranormal mystery. I love that. But don't let them get to you. Laugh at those 1-star reviews. Now, if you get 20 1-star reviews that say, she really needed to look at the grammar, or she needed a good editor, pay attention to those. If you get one, people sometimes are mean. If you get mean people, ignore the mean people. But if there's a consistent message going through, look at that and change. Be like your characters. Come to that abyss. Grammar. And grow and change and do better. But I don't want this to be a negative, but truly you only make sure your first one is golden. Don't put something out thinking, well, next time I'll take a lot more chance. I just want to get this one out, because you only get one chance to make a first impression. And think about it. If you've read a book by an author and you hated it, will you go back and read that author again? I wouldn't. It's like, oh no, I've given you a chance. We were talking about, was it movies, serial movies? Movies are here. First one, the second one, and if I get a bad movie, I'm not going to go back and watch the second one. Why would I do that to myself? Life is too short. Make sure that the first book you put out there is like Paul's Oscar Mike. It's awesome, and it leaves people wanting more. And then, so I'm picking on you, Paul, just a little bit. Get another book out there, because we all loved it. and we wanted more. And so you need to give us more when we can still remember your name. I will remember your name. But you know what? With me, yeah, remember me. Um, you need to, in this indie author thing, our readers are voracious. How many people, if you look through my Facebook feed, how many times a day am I asked when's my next book coming out? And I've been, this COVID thing has blown me up a little bit, but people, it's the best problem you can have. People saying, when's your next book? When's your next book? When's your next? I mean, it's a great thing. It's a wonderful thing. But when you don't have a next book, they're going to go find another author who they're going to love, because there's a lot of good authors out there. Don't lose your audience. You know, get out there. If you're going to do this, and I think you should, keep going at it. Keep going at it. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful. I love doing this as a living, and I feel humbled and privileged that I get the opportunity to do it. Okay.
One more question.
Okay.
This is it looks like the only question.
Okay.
Then just a lot of, really nice things.
Thanks for the really nice things.
So Terry Snyder asked, how many words is a good average book?
So it used to be that a novel was you had to have at least 50,000 words. And my books end up being 53 to 73, depending on what book it is. So those are mine. I think Anne Charles's books, she's in the 100,000. Stephen King, The Stand. I have no idea how many words. It's got to be 200,000 words. I mean, they're just crazy big. But then there was a fellow, his last name was Rain, and he was writing paranormal mysteries, and he was doing like 40 some. And there's a lot now that the ebook has come out. A lot of people are doing more in this 40. I don't feel comfortable. I still stay 50 because that was officially a novel, started at 50,000 words, but a novella is shorter than that. But if you can get to at least 50, I kind of love that 50 to 60 range for me, because my readers tend to read my books through the night. And if I did 100, I would get them fired from their jobs because they'd be too broke. So 50 works really well. In that 50 range works really well for me. But anything 50 and above is considered a novel. I can't answer a question shortly, can I?
I don't think so, but I think that's okay.
Okay.
I think that's,
sorry.
I mean, they're still here, so.
All of a sudden, bing, bing, bing.
Yeah, we're just logging off their computers. Paul said, bad reviews give your good reviews credibility, especially
That's
on
true.
Amazon.
That's true.
And then Terry Snyder said, I accidentally purchased your book thinking it was another author. I fell in love with you and I've read all of them. If you never write another book, you will be my best.
Aw, thank you. Thank you. I will write another book, but thank you.
Is there anything you want to talk about with the next book coming out at all?
I think some of you have heard this. So what I'm doing is I am writing a Mary O'Reilly, but I'm like a Lost Files. Like I'm putting her back between book 5 and 6 because she was kind of in a coma. So where did she go when she was in that coma? We're going to find out. So that's what I'm doing right now, because I really like the dynamics before she married Bradley and had a baby and all of that. It was just so much more fun to write. So I'm doing that, and I'm going to be introducing a new character that I hope you guys like. So that's my teaser. That's what I'll say. Dun, dun, dun.
Let's see. Kitty said almost 70K for the first one and still have a lot of story to go. I'll likely have to split this thing up and have both pushed out not that far apart from each other.
See, that's brilliant. When I first started, they said, if you can get one book out and then get it out there and wait like a month or two and then get your second book out, because that's what people do. They'll read it and then they'll go looking for a second book. So that is brilliant marketing to have one right after another. Because if somebody's read 2 or 3 of your books, then they remember your name and they'll go back for more. So brilliant. Do it like that. But don't make them angry. Don't cut off the first book at an angry place. Pull together resolution, whatever that is, whatever that I always would do. Like I'd resolve the mystery, but then there'd be this overarching thing that continued, like Bradley saying to Mary, "Oh, by the way, my wife's name was Janine," and walking out the door. It's like, and everyone wanted to go to the next book. Yes, you want to do that, but you don't want to not solve the mystery and have people angry at you, because I actually accidentally did that in a book and people were very angry and it was okay. So don't do that. Figure it out. Okay.
Well, and I think that if it's intentionally done, where there's something there, you got your audience invested enough, and then you leave a cliffhanger.
It took me 2 years to get the other okayed out.
Yeah,
people were really angry with me.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Okay, so yeah, and I don't blame them. I was angry with me, so yeah.
Terry Bowles asked,
yes,
can you pronounce the Irish names?
Which?
Yeah, that's, I don't know which questions.
Which
names? I guess you can't really.
Yokade is the Eochidh. And Yokade actually is a Celtic word that means horseman. And that was one that I probably if I had to do it, if I had the do-over button, probably wouldn't name it Yokade. Even though I thought it was way cool, nobody can pronounce it. So yeah, so that one I'd change. I think in if you're talking about this in a writing thing, I wouldn't use strange words anymore. I've learned my lesson. Yeah. I think though J.K. Rowling was brilliant because she used some interesting but not hard to, like muggles. Muggles are now part of our conversation. We know what a muggle is. And so she created those words, but that's not a hard word. It's like snuggle with an M. So I would suggest if you're going to use hard Celtic words, don't.
Well, or show a pronunciation,
which I did,
and don't have them be your title.
Yeah, don't do the title because people look at it and think, "What the? This is in another language. Let's move on this one, Marge." So yes, yeah, learn from what I've done wrong.
Crochelle.
Okay.
Paul said no. Well, so Paul said, Crochelle. Come on. Is that how you pronounce it? Crocell.
I don't know.
And he said, Crochelle needs to come back. Or Crochelle. Crochelle. Strocell.
Okay, I'm old, Paul. Who are we talking about? Can't remember stuff.
And I'm young and naive and inexperienced.
Oh, is he the demon guy?
Oh, yeah. The demon.
And Andrew was just yelling at me, not yelling because we don't yell, we discuss, was saying that the thing that he didn't like about the Mary O'Reilly series, and everybody can go like that.
I'm not saying I don't like it.
Right. But the thing he didn't like is there was never a Moriarty to her Sherlock. And that guy would have been. But I got the angriest letter from a really sweet Catholic lady saying that she didn't like demons. And it kind of threw me for a loop because, it really kind of, obviously, it really affected me that this woman said, I had trusted you and I read all these things and you bring demons in. And I thought, oh my goodness. And so I really stepped away from that. But I think this new book, something that we're introducing, because Andrew makes a really good point that there really needs to be an opposition force. And so with Mary, I can't at this point. But I'm introducing a new character. What? Why are you laughing? What are you reading that I'm not saying?
The last comment Paul said.
What did he say?
He said, 2, and then there's a beep being bad for her. Crochelle.
Okay. You know what? And maybe maybe I do reintroduce him into this new book. Maybe
You-
he's already an established character.
We'll discuss this.
We're going to
later,
discuss this later. Thank you,
when
Paul.
when we don't spoil anything.
And if I do, look for your name in the acknowledgments. Thanks to Paul for slapping me upside my head and putting me back to wave.
Quote you.
Yes.
On this comment.
Yep, and I'm going to lose half of my readership. No. I think I need to do something a little bit out of the box. And he was, and I was kind of enjoying him. He was pretty bad, right? So, okay. Any other questions? This is so much fun. I wish you guys were just we'd have to not be here in the attic because it's kind of tight quarters. But like we were all in one room, like around a table, eating sandwiches, cookies, joking.
It definitely couldn't be in the attic because this is also this doubles as my room.
Yeah.
Which I'm a 25-year-old college boy. I need to clean my room.
Yeah, we couldn't do it here, but this is fun. Okay.
There are no more questions.
Okay.
So, yeah. Paul did let us know that he's working on a new book.
Yes, good.
He's working on it.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. Hey, this was so much fun. Thank you guys. And if you have questions, message me questions. And if we need to do another like take 2 to get further into some things, let me know what we need to get further into. And we can just, even if it's just another writing, okay, I've written for a month now. Let's go back to this and let's talk about what we've done. We could do that too. So whatever works for you guys. Thank you so much. Have a fun evening, guys, and keep writing. Okay.